I've been told by folks that my baby back ribs are the best they've ever eaten. And if you'd like to take your rib game to another dimension, stay tuned and I'm going to share with you how I smoke them on a gas grill. Hello and welcome to Grillin' and Chillin' with Coleman. And unless the real Coleman has won the lottery and bought a private island, I'm Coleman. One of my favorite things to grill and eat has always been baby back ribs. And man, it's hard to beat a great rack of ribs. I've had some great ones over the years, and sadly, I've also had some pretty bad ones. But today I'm going to share with you my fail-proof way of slow smoking amazing ribs on my gas grill. There are several styles of pork ribs to choose from. St. Louis style come from the lower part of the pig just under the pork belly. They tend to be a lot more meatier but also contain a lot more fat. St. Louis ribs are just another name for spare ribs that have had the breastbone cartilage trimmed off. But today we're going to be grilling some baby back ribs. They come from the upper part of the rib cage where they attach to the spine, and they cover up and protect the tenderloin underneath. They are known for being a lot more tender, and I personally think they taste a lot better. And my butcher has always told me that the further away from the ground that the meat is on the animal, the better it's going to taste. Speaking of my butcher, I picked these amazing ribs up from Bluebonnet Meat Company here in North Texas. I uploaded a video recently of Ben the Butcher helping me pick out these exact ribs. If you're anywhere in North Texas, go by and see Ben the Butcher at Bluebonnet Meat Company and tell him Coleman sent you. He and his folks will take really good care of you, and I'll put a link below to their Facebook page. The first thing we want to do is get these beauties out of the cryo pack and rinse them off with cool water. I like to pat them dry with a paper towel to remove any excess water. Now they're ready to trim. Let's start off with the meat side. The great thing about baby backs is they usually don't require a lot of trimming. Now the competition grillers are more concerned with the size and the shape, so they're going to square up the ends to make sure it looks pretty in a box. But today we're trimming these to feed our family and friends. So the first thing I look for is any hard fat that I see. And as I've said before in my videos, that hard fat will not render down and it's not fun to eat. I also like to look and see if there's any silver skin left on by my butcher. But Bluebonnet Meat Company is great about trimming their ribs, so I don't usually have any to remove. I also leave all the internal marbling that I see, that soft fat. That stuff is going to render out nicely and add a lot of bonus flavors to my ribs. Another thing that I remove is any of these meat tags that I see. Those things will just wind up burning and charring, so I cut them off now so that they don't burn up and I have to just trim them off later. But I don't waste those. Those things will go in the freezer and I can add them to a pot of beans later. Now let's take a look at the bone side. The first thing I want to remove on this side is going to be this membrane here on the back. The membrane is a very thin layer of tissue that covers the bone side of the rib. I remove it because it hinders the rub from penetrating this side, and it winds up just turning hard when you grill it. The best way to remove it is by picking up the edge of it with a butter knife or a knife, then grabbing it with a piece of paper towel. Let me show you how to do that. I typically will start off on the skinny end. Notice that's wider down here and skinnier down here. Now in this case, a little bit of it is actually picking up a little bit. So I take a piece of paper towel and I grab a hold of it because it's very, very slippery. I'll grab a hold of it and pick it up. You can see what it looks like. It's real thin. And I pull it away from the bone. Now let's see if we can get it off. So notice how it comes right off and exposes the back of those rib bones real nicely. Now let's go ahead and switch these out and I'll show you how to do the other one. So we're going to start off here on the thin end. Take a piece of paper towel. This one already has a piece of it hanging up. So we're going to grab a hold of the edge. And just pull that right off. And typically it'll come off in one piece. If it doesn't, you might have to dig underneath, grab a hold of it and go with it. The next, I'm going to remove any of these skin tags that I see here on the back, just like we did on the front. Any of this loose stuff I'm going to take off and remove because I don't want it charring and burning as I'm cooking and smoking these ribs. All right, that one looks really good. Let's flip them around, see if there's anything on this one. So this one has a bit of the membrane that stayed on down here at the end. So let's grab a hold of that, finish peeling that off. There's one of those skin tags I was talking about. Not skin tags, but meat tags. So let's trim this up and make it look pretty. There you go. They're all trimmed up. Now they're ready for the rub. I'm going to be using a binder with these ribs. Now, a binder is used to help the rub stick to the meat. And my preferred binder has always been yellow mustard. It doesn't leave any flavor in the meat, but the vinegar really helps tenderize the meat. Some people use oil or apple cider or even apple cider vinegar, but I've always just used cheap yellow mustard. You don't need much, just enough to put a light coating on the ribs, and make sure you coat every surface, including the edges. Here's a bonus tip. Notice how I have a glove on my right hand and the other one I keep clean and dry? I'd like to do this because it helps keep my bottles clean. I never touch the meat with my left hand and only use my right to touch the ribs. The rubs I'm going to be using today are from Meat Church. I've been using their stuff for a few years now and I really like the flavor profile they have. I use their honey bacon barbecue as a base layer. It has a really great sweet flavor that I really enjoy on ribs and a sweet profile that goes well with pork. I use the same rub on my pork butt. Its main ingredient is sugar, salt, and powdered honey, but it also has some paprika and some garlic in it. I start off with a healthy coating of it. Want to make sure you cover all the surfaces. I really don't think that you can use too much of this. The second rub I'm going to be using today is the Honey Hog Hot Barbecue. And I typically only put this on the back and I use a light coating of it. But I make sure that every surface gets touched. It's very similar to the honey bacon, but it doesn't have the bacon and it has a little chipotle in it. So it gives it a nice flavor that hits your tongue when you take a bite. But again, I only typically put it on the back. Now that I have the rub on the back, I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes to sweat in. Then I'm going to flip them over. I always start with the back and the bone side first. That way when I flip them over and I put the rub on the top, then it doesn't get disturbed before I put it on the grill. Now here on the front, we're going to put our honey bacon barbecue. Get a nice coating, make sure every surface is covered, including the sides. The combo of these two rubs also gives it a beautiful red color. You'll see when we get done the amazing color that they come off with. Now let's go ahead and let these sit for a few minutes while I get the grill ready. The salt in the rub is going to start to sweat these ribs a little and draw the flavor deep into the meat. Today we're going to be slow smoking our baby backs on our gas grill, but you can use any type of grill and use the same method I'm going to show you today. We're going to need to set up our grill for indirect or two-zone cooking. That means we're going to have a hot side on one end and an indirect on the other. but we're going to be doing all of our grilling today on the indirect side. Now, I do this on my grill by turning the 2 burners on the far right-hand side on low and leaving the other 3 off. This will help me maintain a temperature on the indirect side of 250 degrees, but I'm going to have to monitor the temperature on my grill regularly because gas grills are not meant to retain heat and their temperature tends to fluctuate. My CyberQ Cloud will help me monitor the temperature on the indirect side. I'm going to place a pan of water over the heat side of my grill. Gas grills tend to dry out food more than charcoal, so this will help me keep the humidity up inside my grill. Earlier I did say we were smoking these ribs, so let me share with you how we're going to do that on the gas grill. I like to use these smoke tubes on my gas grill. I just fill them with wood pellets and light one in. I really like these because I can put them on the same side of the grill as the meat that I'm cooking, or in this case the ribs, and you tend to get more smoke on your food. If you don't have one, just make a small tray out of foil. Soak the wood chips overnight and put them in the tray. Soak more chips than you think you're going to need, as you will need to keep adding them as they burn down. Then place the tray over the flame side of the grill. In a few minutes, they'll start to smoke. That method usually doesn't put as much smoke flavor in your meat, as the smoke will escape out the closest hole. Our grill is finally at the perfect 250 degrees, so let's go ahead and get these babies on. If you're tight on space, you can go ahead and use a rib rack for this step of the cook. I usually only use one when I'm cooking for a large group, so I won't be using one today. When you put them on, make sure you put them on meat side up. I also like to scrunch the ends up a little bit. It makes for a better presentation. Plus, I think they cook a lot better. If you see any spots where the rub is messed up, now would be a good time to touch that up as well. For the first step of this cook, we're going to be smoking our rack for 3 hours at 250 degrees, and we're going to be spritzing them every 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and make our spritz. You know, on YouTube, it looks like things go perfectly every single time. Well, this time, they didn't. Right after filming that last scene, I walked into the house. My microphone cable caught on the door handle, and it ripped the wire completely out of my microphone. So I was not able to finish that recording. We did eat those ribs. They were very good. But I had to go down and buy another 2 racks of ribs. So the ribs you're going to see in the rest of this video are from that second set of ribs. Hope you enjoy. I'm going to be making my spritz today in a pump-up bottle, but any clean spray bottle will work. I would highly recommend that if you don't have one, go get a new one and mark it barbecue only, because the last thing you want is to have someone put glass cleaner in your spritz bottle. Now, in my spritz that I'm going to be making today, I'm going to use 1 part apple cider vinegar and 1 part water. We're going to mix them together in the spritz bottle and then shake them up. You can use just water, but I like to add the apple cider vinegar because it helps to tenderize the meat. You can use this spritz mix on just about anything that you grill. The whole idea is to keep them moist, and as I mentioned earlier, in a gas grill, that's extremely important. Our ribs have been smoking at 250 for about 45 minutes now, so let's go ahead and take a look at them. You can see that the bark has started to set in nicely and we're starting to get a great color. I'm going to give them a spritz of the mixture that we made earlier, and make sure that you give them enough so that they look wet and cover all the surface. It's also a good idea at this point to turn the ribs 180 degrees. Most of the heat is coming from the other side of the grill, so I want to make sure they are cooking evenly. I'll check back with you in a little over 2 hours, but I'm going to continue to spritz and rotate these every 45 minutes. Our ribs have been smoking for almost 3 hours, and it's almost time to wrap them in foil. But before we take them off the grill, we need to do a little prep work. I pulled out 4 sheets of foil that are a little longer than the rib racks that I'm going to be wrapping them in. I'm going to lay them out here on the counter, and the first thing I'm going to do is add a cup of brown sugar to the top. Take 1 cup of brown sugar and spread it out on the foil. You want to make sure that the sugar bed is about the same size as your rib racks. Next, I cut some butter into slices about 1/8 of an inch thick. I usually use about 10 to 12 of them per rack. Lay them out on top of your bed of brown sugar. Lastly, take some real maple syrup and drizzle it over the top of everything. I usually use about 1/8 of a cup. Now our rib bed is complete. And no, these are not keto. We've hit our 3-hour mark and it's time to wrap these ribs. Make sure you wear gloves for this part. Our color is right where we want it to be, and these have taken all the smoke that they're going to take. Wrapping them now are just going to help us get them tender. So pull them off the grill and place them meat side down on the bed of brown sugar we prepared. There is really no need to add any liquid in these, as the fat will render down and really help to tenderize them. We will wrap them with the first layer of foil, making sure the bones don't poke any holes in our foil. Now flip them over so the meat side is now up and wrap them in the second layer of foil. And back on the grill, meat side up for 2 more hours at 250 degrees. I'm also going to rotate them 180 degrees after an hour. These next 2 hours will make these ribs extremely tender. If you don't like them to fall off the bone, you can cut this time down to about 90 minutes, but otherwise we'll check back with you in about 2 hours. Our ribs have been on the grill for another 2 hours now, and it's time to take them off the grill and get them out of the foil. At this point, the ribs are almost completely done, but they need a little more time on the grill to help set in that bark, plus we need to add some sauce. Be very careful when opening these up. There's going to be a lot of juice from the fat rendering out the butter and the brown sugar. Let's unwrap them and get them back on the grill, meat side up. If you prefer a dry rib, at this point, just add another coating of the Meat Church Honey Bacon Barbecue and let them stay on the grill for another 30 to 60 minutes. But I prefer my ribs wet, and I love Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. So I'm adding a little to the top and using my brush to spread it all over. We're going to let these stay on the grill for another 30 to 60 minutes at 250 degrees. We'll see you when it's time to pull them off. All right, it's been 45 minutes. Let's go ahead and check on them. Wow, the sauce has glazed these ribs perfectly, and they're ready to pull. Now, they're going to be extremely tender, so be careful when you pull them. If this is not barbecue beauty, I don't know what is. That Meat Church rub gives these an amazing color, and the flavor is going to be outstanding. As you can see, the meat is starting to pull away from the bone, and that's how you can tell it's done. I could just grab one of these bones and pull it out, and sometimes I like to do that and make a rib sandwich. But before we cut into these babies, let's review what we did. We started off by unwrapping, trimming, and removing the membrane from the back. Next, we applied our mustard binder and seasoned the ribs with our Meat Church rubs. Then we let our ribs set while we got our grill ready by getting it up to 250 degrees. We added smoke and humidity to our grill by using a smoke tube and a pan of water. It was then time to get the ribs on the heat while we made our apple cider vinegar and water spritz. We then spritzed and flipped our ribs every 45 minutes for the first 3 hours. After 3 hours, we wrapped our ribs in foil on a bed of brown sugar, butter, and maple syrup, then back on the grill for another 2 hours. After 2 hours, we pulled our ribs out of the foil, put them back on the grill, and added our barbecue sauce. Another 45 minutes on the grill, our ribs were ready to come off and eat. I went ahead and cut into these babies. I took a rib right out of the middle, but usually when I serve them, I like to cut them into 3 and give someone a healthy serving. Let's go ahead and take a bite and get messy. All right, you can see that these are extremely tender. I love it when they're pulled off the bone. And again, if you don't like them this done, Just cut back on the time about 30 or 60 minutes, and it'll make them a little less tender. But I love them this way, and so does my honey, so that's the way I make them. Let's go ahead and take a bite. Wow. That brown sugar and butter has made these so tender. And you know, if you remember, I put the Meat Church Honey Bacon Barbecue right on top, and then I put the honey hot on the bottom. So when I first take my bite, I can feel the hot on my tongue just a little bit, just to give it a little bite. But the rest of it is so sweet and tender. I gotta try some more. Look how clean that bone is. You know, to me that is a perfect rib. No questions asked. I know I'm going to get some comments about, well, that's just overdone because it's pulled off the bone. Well, you know what? Cook them the way you like them. If you like them a little more or less done, cook them that way. Cut a little time off. For me, I love them this way. And that is just perfect. And guess what? My dogs are going to love these bones. Thank you again for joining me today in the GNC Kitchen. We've recently hit 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and I really owe it all to you folks. I always enjoy sharing my cooks with you. Thank you again for being patient with me on this video and the lousy sound quality in the second half. I promise the sound will be much better next time. If you like what you see, please click the like button below, and also hit the subscribe button here, and don't forget to ring that bell. It'll let you know when I come out with some new videos. For all the items that I used in the cook today, I included a link below. Those links help support the channel and assist me in bringing you more videos. Now, I also included a link below to Bluebonnet Meat Company Facebook page. If you live in North Texas, go by and see them, or at least go visit their Facebook page. But before you go, here's a few of my other videos that you might enjoy. If you like them, please click that like button and share them on your Facebook page. And man, I'm really excited about our journey together toward 200 subscribers. And I look forward to seeing you again on Grillin' and Chillin' with Coleman. Now, y'all go grill something.